I just froze. Oh, there it is. Hi everyone. Hey, I wanted to come, and this particular Facebook Live is for any individual that is in a position of a caregiver right now. So I'd love to know how many of you are caregivers. And the reason that I wanted to come to you was because I was a caregiver to my late husband for about 20 years. And it was not an easy job. It could be a very difficult job. But it was the most rewarding thing that I'd ever done, and I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity, because there are a lot of people that don't have the opportunity to care for a loved one all the way up until the very end. But there were things that I did wrong and mistakes that I made, and I wanted to share those with you so that you would make those same mistakes. There were 3 big things that I felt that, not that I did a bad job, but in looking back on that time, I wished I would have done better. And as I said, caregiving is not an easy task. There are challenges in it. And so, again, what I wanted to do was share some of those tips that I learned, and mistakes that I feel that I made, or things that I could have done better. I wanted to share those with you so that you could learn from those. I always try and pass my mistakes on so that you could learn from better. So the first lesson that I wished I would have done, or the thing that I wish that I would have done better, is to be flexible. You know, loved ones that get sick or are sick, they don't want to be sick either. And there's never a perfect time to get sick. There just isn't. Mike's diagnosis came 3 years after we were married. So imagine, here we were, a young married couple in the prime of our marriage, you know, one of those things where you couldn't sleep in the middle of the night, so you get up and go to breakfast because you could, taking vacations, you know, we did all of these amazing things, and out of the blue, then he got sick. And it was a rare liver disease that we thought would maybe just be treated and then it would go away, and that's not what happened. From the time we were married, 3 years all the way, and time he passed 20 years later, now all of a sudden that our life, instead of being filled with getaways and surprise trips, it was doctor's appointments and treatments, and there were all these things. And then you had those things that were planned, but then you had things that weren't planned. Emergency room visits, and I should, and have not, but I should write a book on all of the things. You know, if it wasn't an infection, it was a blood clot, or he had a pulmonary embolism in his lung, and, you know, it was just a plethora of things. And what I didn't do well was I wasn't flexible enough. I can't tell you the number of holidays, Thanksgivings, Easters, Christmases that we spent in the hospital, or working around a hospital schedule because he got sick. But it wasn't his choice either. And I wish that I would have been a little bit more flexible in looking at, you know what, there's another Christmas. You know what, there's another Easter. You know what, it's really not about the day, it's about us being together. And so our family was very understanding. So instead of getting all uptight about it, I should have just said, you know what, let's be flexible. We won't celebrate Easter this weekend on Easter Sunday. We'll celebrate Easter next weekend. But I didn't. I was so geeked up, and I'm assuming it was because of the fact that I was upset that our life was being interrupted by this disease, by all of these things that I really didn't want to be doing. And I wish that it would have been, that I would have been more flexible, because my inflexibility caused him to be geeked up. And as I said, he didn't want to be sick either. He didn't necessarily want to go through all of those things, and I don't feel like I made it any better. Where if I would have just looked at it and would have been more flexible with things, it probably would have made his life a little easier on that, in those times when he was in the hospital. So the first thing, that if you are a caregiver, that's what I would recommend, is for you to be more flexible, to try and be more flexible. The second thing is to be patient. Again, not something that I was good at. I wasn't patient with the doctors, I wasn't patient with the nurses, I wasn't patient with Mike. I didn't give him an opportunity to, I don't want to say I didn't give him an opportunity. I did give him an opportunity, but I just didn't have the patience. And I think for me, and I'm being very vulnerable here, and that was because I was mad. I wasn't mad at him, but I was mad at the situation. I was mad at the fact that we had to go through this. I was mad that we were a young married couple. I was mad that I married this amazing, strong man that was a bodybuilder in college, that now towards the end of his life, obviously looked very sickly. He didn't in the beginning, but there were times where he did look like he was sick. And some of those times I couldn't even see it. I look back on pictures now and I see that. But I wish that I would have been more patient. Again, nobody chooses to get sick. Nobody chooses to get a cancer diagnosis. Nobody chooses to have to go into the hospital, whatever that was. But because I wasn't as patient with him or with the situation as I could have been, I probably caused more stress in the situation than anything else. So I want to encourage you to be patient with your loved one, patient with your family, patient with the doctors. I'm not saying being patient and being an advocate are two different things. You need to be an advocate for yourself. You need to be an advocate for your loved ones. And that's one thing that I'm grateful for, is that prior to COVID, when all of this happened, I could be at the hospital all the time. I could be his advocate. But it doesn't mean that you have to just sit there and wait for them if it's days and days and days. You certainly should be an advocate for yourself. But be patient with the situation, because they don't want to be there either. And you being upset and stressful can just make the situation worse, which is what I feel that I did. I feel like there were situations that I could have handled much better. The third thing is that I want you to think about. So the first one is be flexible. Second thing is be patient. The third one is be grateful. And I wish that I would have been more grateful during those times. After I had stepped away from the chair at the salon, I had gone to see a life coach. And it was during this time that Mike was really sick as well. And my life coach, who I love, Mickey, was wonderful. And she'd said, instead of asking why, start asking, what am I supposed to learn from this? And be grateful for all of those situations. I look back on that time now. I wish that I would have been more grateful that my job was flexible, that I could work from his hospital room. I wish that I would have realized and been more grateful for all of that time that I had to spend with Mike, that I took Seth to school and then I would sit by his bedside when he was in the hospital, because I had the opportunity to be able to do that. I could work from his hospital room. But be grateful for all of those things that happened, because you just don't know, right? I had a podcast guest not long ago who said, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. So really think about that. Things don't happen to you, they happen for you. So if I would have been more grateful in those times, what blessings did I miss? Because I wasn't more grateful, because I was too worried about me, because I wasn't flexible, because I wasn't patient, and therefore I couldn't practice gratitude, because I couldn't see how any good could come from this. And you know what? There was a lot of good that came from that. Mike touched a lot of lives. I still run into nurses and doctors that just tell me, Mike was their favorite patient. Because of the way that Mike handled things, it changed their lives. It changed the way that they did things. And so I wish that in those moments I would have been more grateful for that time that I had with him, and that I had the opportunity to be able to spend the time with him. And I was also grateful that it was me, that I got to be the one to advocate for him, because I wouldn't have wanted anybody else making those decisions. And there got to a point where he couldn't make those decisions for himself. So, I'm coming to you with this because my mom is 75 and just has had some little mishap thing. Nothing major. She's fine. She's a healthy, almost 76-year-old. She's a Spitfire. But, last week she broke a couple of toes or had some stress fractures. And so we had the opportunity to be with her, and she had no weight bearing on her foot. So we worked from her condo, and I got the opportunity to take her to the doctor, and yesterday and today. And I'm so grateful, because I've learned the lessons that I learned with Mike. So when she called me and said, I can't walk on my right foot, I was able to be flexible. Getting her in and out of the car, using a wheelchair or having her hobble, I was able to be patient. And I've learned to be grateful, because my mom is 76, and if I get her for another 15 years, I'm going to be really grateful for that. But you know what? 15 years with my mom isn't long enough. So all of these extended times that I've had the opportunity to spend with her, while we're sitting in the doctor's office, while we're driving, while we're doing all the car, I'm really grateful for all of those times. And so I found that those things I didn't do right with Mike, because of the awareness that I have, I get an opportunity to be the person now to do them right with my mom. So I hope that those are good takeaways. Again, I commend you for your efforts. Being a caregiver is not easy, but it is one of the most rewarding things that you do. So what I want to just really leave you with is just love your loved one. Give them a hug, kiss them on the head, Let them know that you're there. And really, you don't even have to say anything, but if you practice flexibility, patience, and gratitude, they'll see it. You won't even really need to say anything. You won't need to say anything because they'll see it. So I hope that's helped. If you've got hints or tips that have helped you be a better caregiver, leave them in the comments for me, because I'll certainly take all the help that I can get. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.